The stars looked different from the observation deck of the Horizon Dawn. Commander Jake Morrison stood with his hands behind his back, watching the distant lights twinkle against the black canvas of space. He had been in space for 15 years, but the view never got old. Each star represented possibilities, worlds to explore, civilizations to meet. Today, he hoped one of those meetings would go well. The year was 2247, and humanity had finally cracked the secret of faster-than-light travel. It took them 200 years after leaving Earth's atmosphere, but they did it. Now human colonies dotted several star systems near Earth. The colonies were small, fragile things, dependent on supply ships and protection from Earth's fleet, but they were growing. Jake turned away from the window as his second officer approached. Lieutenant Amy Sullivan was young, only 28, but she was the best pilot he had ever seen. Her short brown hair was pulled back in a regulation bun, and her green eyes showed concern. "We are approaching the station, Commander," she said. "The Varathians are waiting." Jake nodded. The Varathians. They were the reason for this whole trip. Humanity had encountered them 3 months ago when a human exploration ship wandered into what the Varathians called their territory. The aliens had been polite but firm. They escorted the human ship out and sent a message to Earth. They wanted to talk. That was a good sign, Jake thought. If they wanted to talk, they did not want to fight. At least that was what Earth's government hoped. The Varathians controlled a massive empire. Hundreds of star systems. They had been spacefaring for over 1,000 years. Compared to them, humanity was a baby taking its first steps. The Horizon Dawn docked at the neutral station an hour later. The station was old, built by a species that no longer existed. It floated in empty space halfway between human and Varathian territory. Jake gathered his small team in the airlock. Besides Amy, he brought Dr. Lisa Crawford, Earth's leading physicist, and 2 security officers. Lisa was nervous. Jake could tell by the way she kept adjusting her glasses. She was brilliant, maybe the smartest person Jake had ever met, but she hated diplomacy. She preferred labs and equations to politics and aliens. "Remember," Jake said to his team, "we are here to establish trade relations. Be polite, be professional, and let me do the talking." They entered the station through a long corridor. The artificial gravity felt slightly heavier than Earth normal. The walls were made of a smooth gray metal that seemed to absorb light. Their footsteps echoed in the empty hallway. The Varathians were waiting in what looked like a conference room. There were 3 of them. They were tall, nearly 7 feet, with gray skin and 4 arms. Their faces were angular, with large eyes that glowed faintly yellow. They wore dark armor that looked both ceremonial and functional. The one in the center stepped forward. His armor was more ornate than the others, decorated with symbols that probably indicated rank. "I am War Master Krell," the alien said. His voice came through a translator device, sounding mechanical and cold. "I speak for the Varathian Empire." Jake introduced himself and his team. They sat at opposite sides of a long table. The furniture was sized for Varathians, making the humans feel small. "Thank you for meeting with us," Jake began. "Earth hopes to establish peaceful relations with the Varathian Empire. We believe there are opportunities for mutual benefit through trade and cultural exchange." Krell stared at him for a long moment. Then, to Jake's surprise, the alien laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. "You misunderstand the purpose of this meeting, human," Krell said. "We did not invite you here to negotiate trade. We invited you here to deliver terms." Jake felt a cold weight settle in his stomach. Beside him, Lisa tensed. "Terms?" Jake asked carefully. Krell leaned forward, all 4 of his arms resting on the table. His yellow eyes seemed to glow brighter. "The Varathian Empire has ruled this region of space for 1,000 years, Krell said. "In that time, we have encountered 47 species. Some were wise and submitted peacefully. Others resisted and were crushed. You humans have recently acquired faster-than-light travel. You explore. You build colonies. You act as if this space belongs to you. We are only exploring nearby systems," Jake said. "We have no intention of infringing on Varathian territory." "All space is Varathian territory," Krell replied flatly. "Your colonies exist only because we have not yet claimed those systems. But that changes now. Humanity will submit to Varathian rule. You will pay tribute. You will provide resources. You will obey our laws. In return, we will allow you to exist." The room fell silent. Jake could hear his own heartbeat. This was not a negotiation. This was a demand for complete surrender, and if we refuse? Jake asked quietly. Krell stood up. His two companions did the same. The War Master walked to a wall panel and pressed something. A holographic display appeared in the center of the table, showing what looked like a massive weapon floating in space. "This is the Void Hammer," Krell said with what might have been pride. "It is a quantum antimatter device. When detonated near a planet, it creates a chain reaction that converts all matter within its radius into energy. The planet does not explode. It simply ceases to exist," Lisa gasped. Even through her fear, Jake could see her mind working, analyzing what she was seeing. The weapon was enormous, the size of a small space station. Its surface was covered in strange geometric patterns that hurt to look at. "We have used the Void Hammer 3 times in our history," Krell continued. "Each time the target species chose destruction over submission. Each time we erased their homeworld from existence. The other species in their empire surrendered immediately afterward." Jake stood up slowly. His security officers moved closer, hands near their weapons, though they knew guns would be useless here. "You are threatening to destroy Earth," Jake said. "I am not threatening," Krell replied. "I am informing. As we speak, the Void Hammer has been launched toward your homeworld. It will arrive in 21 days. During that time, humanity will submit or humanity will die. There is no negotiation. There is no third option." The hologram changed, showing a countdown timer. 21 days, 14 hours, 37 minutes. The numbers ticked down steadily. "This is being broadcast on all frequencies," Krell said. "Every human with a radio will be able to watch the countdown. They will know their fate approaches. This usually encourages quick submission." Jake felt anger rising in his chest, hot and fierce. He wanted to grab the alien, to fight, to do something, but he forced himself to stay calm. Getting emotional would not help Earth. Why? Jake asked. "Why do this? You said some species submitted peacefully. Why not just ask? Why threaten us?" For the first time, Krell showed something that might have been emotion. His eyes narrowed. "Because you are young and arrogant," the War Master said. "You discovered faster than light travel by accident, stumbling upon technology you barely understand. You expanded into space without earning it, without proving yourselves worthy. Species like yours always believe they are special, that the rules do not apply to them. We teach you otherwise." "So this is about pride," Lisa said suddenly. Everyone looked at her. She was staring at the hologram of the weapon, her fear replaced by intense focus. "You do not actually want to destroy us. You want us to be afraid. You want us to know our place." Krell turned his attention to her. For a moment, he seemed to consider her words. "The physicist speaks," he said. "Yes, little human. Fear is a tool. An empire built on respect lasts longer than one built on force alone. When your people submit, they will remember this moment. They will remember that we held the power of extinction over them and chose mercy. They will be grateful." "We need time," Jake said. "Time to discuss this with our government, to consider our options." "You have 21 days, Krell replied. "When the Void Hammer reaches Earth, we will contact your leaders. If they have submitted, we will deactivate the weapon. If not, Earth ends. This meeting is over." The Vorathians left the room without another word. Jake and his team stood in silence, staring at the hologram that still showed the countdown. 21 days. 3 weeks to save 8 billion people. They returned to the Horizon Dawn quickly. Jake immediately opened a communication channel to Earth. Admiral Patrick Holland appeared on the screen. He was an older man, his hair gray and his face lined with worry. He had been in the military for 40 years. "I saw the broadcast," Holland said before Jake could speak. "The whole world has seen it. People are panicking. The government is in emergency session. Tell me everything." Jake gave his report, explaining exactly what Krell had said and shown them. Lisa added technical details about the weapon, though she admitted she did not fully understand how it worked. "Can we destroy it?" Holland asked. "Shoot it down before it reaches Earth?" "We have been trying," Holland said grimly. "We fired everything we have at it. Missiles, lasers, kinetic weapons. Nothing touches it. The weapon has some kind of shield. Our attacks just bounce off." Lisa leaned closer to the screen. "Admiral, may I ask a question?" "Go ahead, Doctor. How fast is the weapon moving?" Holland checked something off screen. "Not very fast, actually. About 0.2 light speed. We could catch it if we wanted to." Lisa bit her lip, thinking. Jake recognized that look. She had an idea. "What if we do not try to destroy it?" Lisa said slowly. "What if we capture it instead?" The Shadow Runner was not like any ship Jake had ever flown. It was sleek and black, built with experimental technology that Earth's engineers had been working on for years. The ship could bend light around itself, making it nearly invisible to sensors. Its engines were powerful and quiet. It was designed for one purpose: sneaking into places where humans were not supposed to be. Jake stood in the small briefing room at Earth Defense Headquarters, looking at his assembled team. Amy Sullivan checked her flight controls one last time. Lieutenant Ryan Carter, a stocky man with close-cropped hair and steady hands, examined the equipment they would need to breach the weapon's hull. Dr. Lisa Crawford studied holographic projections of the Void Hammer, her eyes moving rapidly as she absorbed every detail. Admiral Holland entered the room carrying a small case. His face was drawn with exhaustion. The past 3 days had been hell for everyone on Earth. Riots had broken out in several cities. Some people demanded surrender to save their lives. Others wanted to fight, even if fighting meant certain death. The government was struggling to keep order. "You have 18 days left," Holland said without preamble. "The Void Hammer is currently 3 light days from Earth and moving at 0.2 light speed. To intercept it, you will need to accelerate to 0.3 light speed. That gives you approximately 5 days to reach it." He opened the case, revealing a series of cutting tools and explosive devices that Ryan had requested. "These are prototype quantum cutters. They should work on alien materials, but we have never tested them on Varathian technology." "Be careful," Lisa spoke up. "What about the shield? Can we track its cycle pattern from here?" Holland nodded and brought up another display. "Our sensors have been watching the weapon continuously. The shield does flicker, just as you predicted. It cycles off for exactly 3 seconds every 47 seconds. The timing is precise, like clockwork." 3 seconds, Amy said quietly. "That is not much time to get through." "It will have to be enough," Jake replied. "Admiral, what about Varathian patrols?" Krell said they positioned ships to prevent interference. "We have detected 4 Varathian warships in the area," Holland confirmed. "They are maintaining a loose perimeter around the weapon. The Shadow Runners' stealth capabilities should keep you hidden, but if they spot you, you will not be able to outrun them. Their ships are faster." Ryan Carter cracked his knuckles. "So we sneak in, cut our way inside, grab what we can, and get out." "Simple." "Nothing about this is simple," Holland said sharply. "You are attempting to board an active doomsday weapon built by a civilization that considers us insects. If something goes wrong, if you trigger any safety mechanism, that weapon could detonate early. 8 billion people are counting on you to not make a mistake." The room fell silent. The weight of what they were about to attempt settled over them like a physical force. "We understand the stakes, Admiral," Jake said quietly. "We will not fail." Holland looked at each of them in turn. Then he stepped back and saluted. "Good luck, and come home." They boarded the Shadow Runner 30 minutes later. The ship felt cramped with 4 people aboard. It was designed for a crew of 2, maybe 3, but they made it work. Amy took the pilot's seat, her fingers dancing across the controls as she brought the engines online. Jake sat beside her in the co-pilot's chair. Lisa and Ryan secured themselves in the small compartment behind the cockpit. "Shadow Runner to control," Amy said into her headset. "We are ready for launch." The response came immediately. "Control copies. You are cleared for departure." "Godspeed, Shadow Runner." The ship lifted smoothly from the landing pad and rose into the sky. Within minutes, they broke through Earth's atmosphere and entered the darkness of space. Amy engaged the main engines and the ship accelerated smoothly. The stars began to blur as they approached significant fractions of light speed. Jake watched the navigation display. A red dot marked the position of the Void Hammer. A green line showed their projected intercept course. 5 days. 5 days of flying through empty space, knowing that every second brought Earth closer to destruction. The first 2 days passed in tense silence. The crew took turns sleeping, though none of them slept well. Lisa spent most of her time studying every scrap of data they had on Varathian technology. Ryan maintained and checked their equipment obsessively. Amy kept the ship on course, her hands steady on the controls. On the 3rd day, they encountered their first obstacle. Amy's sensors picked up a Varathian patrol ship crossing their path. She immediately cut the main engines and activated the stealth systems. "Contact," she said quietly. "Varathian warship, bearing 270. Distance, 300,000 kilometers." Everyone froze. The Shadow Runner drifted silently through space, its stealth field bending light and sensor waves around it. On the screen, the Varathian ship appeared as a massive, angular vessel bristling with weapons. It was at least 5 times larger than the Shadow Runner. "Are they scanning?" Jake asked. "Yes," Amy replied. "Active sensors sweeping the area. But so far, they are not reacting to us." They waited. Minutes crawled by. The Varathian ship continued its patrol, passing within 50,000 kilometers of their position. Jake held his breath. If the stealth field failed now, they would be destroyed before they could react. Finally, the alien vessel moved away, disappearing into the darkness. Amy waited another 10 minutes before restarting the main engines. "That was too close," Ryan muttered. "We will probably encounter more," Jake said. "Stay alert." They did encounter more. Over the next day and a half, they spotted 3 additional patrol ships. Each time, Amy cut the engines and went dark, and each time the Varathians passed by without detecting them. The stealth technology was holding. On the 5th day, they finally caught up with the Void Hammer. Lisa was the first to see it on the long-range sensors. "There," she said, pointing at her screen. "That is it." Jake leaned forward to look. At first, he thought the sensor was malfunctioning. The object was huge, far larger than the holograms had suggested. It was easily the size of Earth's largest space station, maybe bigger. Its shape was irregular, covered in strange protrusions and geometric patterns that seemed to shift when he looked at them directly. "That is a bomb?" Ryan asked in disbelief. "It looks like a small moon." "It is not just a bomb," Lisa said, her voice filled with awe. "It is an entire system. Look at the energy readings. There are power generators, cooling systems, containment fields. This thing is a masterpiece of engineering. A masterpiece designed to kill us," Jake reminded her. "Amy, bring us in slowly. I want to observe the shield cycle before we commit." Amy maneuvered the Shadow Runner into position, keeping their distance while they watched. True to the sensor data from Earth, the shield around the weapon flickered off every 47 seconds. During those 3-second windows, the surface of the Void Hammer was exposed. Lisa timed it with a stopwatch, counting down each cycle. 47, 46, 45. She continued until she was certain of the pattern. "It is exact," she confirmed. 47 seconds on, 3 seconds off. No variation. "All right," Jake said. "We go in on the next cycle. Amy, when the shield drops, get us close to the hull and attach the magnetic grapples. Ryan, you and I will suit up and start cutting immediately. Lisa, you monitor the shield from inside and warn us if anything changes." Everyone nodded. Jake and Ryan moved to the airlock and began putting on their spacesuits. The suits were bulky and uncomfortable, but they had built-in tools and life support for up to 8 hours. Jake checked his oxygen levels and sealed his helmet. "Ready?" Amy asked from the cockpit. "Ready," Jake confirmed. Lisa began the countdown. 10 seconds. 9. 8. Jake felt his heart pounding. This was it. Everything depended on the next few seconds. 3, 2, 1. Shield down. Amy fired the thrusters, sending the Shadow Runner hurtling toward the massive weapon. The distance closed rapidly. 200 meters. 100. 50. 20. The ship shuddered as Amy brought it to a stop just meters from the hull. Magnetic grapples shot out and locked onto the alien metal with solid clangs that echoed through the ship. "We are attached," Amy said. "Shield cycling back up in 3, 2, 1. The shield reactivated around them. Jake felt a strange tingling sensation as the energy field passed through the ship. But they were inside now, protected by the same shield that kept Earth's weapons out. "Step 1 complete," Jake said. "Ryan, let us go to work." They exited through the airlock onto the surface of the Void Hammer. Jake's magnetic boots clamped onto the hull, keeping him anchored. The surface was smooth but covered in intricate patterns that glowed faintly with internal light. Up close, the weapon was even more intimidating. Ryan pulled out one of the quantum cutters and activated it. A thin beam of blue-white energy extended from the tip. He touched it to the hull and the metal began to glow and melt. "Good news," he said. "The cutters work on this material." They worked together, cutting a circular opening large enough for them to climb through. It took almost 20 minutes. Jake kept glancing at his suit's countdown timer. 11 days remained until the weapon would reach Earth. 11 days to study this thing, understand it, and somehow turn it to their advantage. Finally, the section of hull fell away, revealing a dark opening into the weapon's interior. Jake peered inside with his suit's lights. He could see. Dr. Lisa Crawford had not slept in 36 hours. Her eyes burned with exhaustion, but she could not stop working. The inside of the void hammer was cold, kept at a temperature comfortable for Varathians but chilly for humans. Her breath misted inside her helmet as she studied the alien control systems. The weapon was a marvel. Every system she examined revealed layers of sophistication that humanity would not achieve for decades, maybe centuries. The Varathians had mastered technologies that Earth scientists only theorized about: zero-point energy extraction, quantum entanglement communication, matter-antimatter reaction chambers that operated at efficiencies humans could only dream of. But as Lisa dug deeper into the systems, she began to see something the Varathians probably did not realize. Their technology was powerful, yes, but it was also rigid. Every system had massive safety margins built in. The antimatter containment used 10 times more energy than necessary. The targeting computer ran calculations that were overly complex. The propulsion system operated at only 60% of its theoretical capacity. The Varathians had built a weapon that could destroy a planet, and then they over-engineered it to make absolutely certain it would work. But in doing so, they had created something inefficient. They had never needed to optimize. When you already had overwhelming power, why bother making it better? Humanity, on the other hand, had spent its entire existence learning to do more with less. Humans built things that barely worked, then refined them until they sang. Earth's engineers took systems to their limits and beyond. It was not because humans were smarter than the Varathians. It was because humans had to be. Earth had fewer resources, less time, and a constant need to compete with itself. Lisa called it necessity engineering. The Varathians never learned it because they never needed to. "And that was their weakness, Commander," she said into her radio. "I need you to look at this." Jake Morrison floated over from where he had been helping Ryan examine the weapon's power core. "What did you find?" Lisa pointed at her portable computer screen. "This is the antimatter containment system. See these feedback loops? They cycle excess energy back into the magnetic bottles to maintain stability. Very safe, very redundant, and completely wasteful." "Okay," Jake said slowly. "What does that mean for us?" "It means I can reconfigure the system to use that excess energy instead of wasting it. If I create a cascade loop, feeding the excess back into the reaction itself, I can multiply the weapon's yield exponentially. Based on my calculations, we could increase the explosive power by a factor of 12. Jake stared at her. 12 times more powerful, at least. Maybe more, depending on how stable the cascade remains. The Varathians never tried this because it makes the system less predictable. There is slightly more risk of containment failure. But the payoff is enormous. How much risk are we talking about? Jake asked carefully. Maybe 5% chance of premature detonation if something goes wrong during the modification process. Once it is done and stable, the risk drops to near zero. Jake thought about it. 5% chance of blowing up right now versus certain destruction of Earth in 9 days. Not much of a choice, do it, he said. But Lisa, be careful. If this thing goes off early, a lot of people are counting on us. I know, Lisa replied quietly. Believe me, I know. She began the painstaking work of rewiring the antimatter containment system. It required physical modifications to the hardware, not just software changes. Ryan helped her, using his demolitions expertise to carefully disconnect and reconnect components without triggering any safety mechanisms. They worked in near silence, communicating only when necessary. One wrong move could kill them all. It took 2 full days. Lisa worked until she was so tired she could barely think straight, then forced herself to sleep for a few hours before returning. Jake made her take breaks, knowing that exhaustion led to mistakes and mistakes led to disaster. Finally, on the third day inside the weapon, Lisa made the last connection. She held her breath as she activated the new cascade system. For a terrifying moment, nothing happened. Then the readings on her computer began to climb. "It is working," she said, her voice filled with relief. "The cascade is stable. Energy output is increasing. We now have a weapon that is 12.3 times more powerful than what the Varathians designed." Jake allowed himself a small smile. "That is one hell of an upgrade. What is next?" While Lisa had been working on the power systems, Ryan had been studying the weapon's targeting computer. He was not a scientist, but he understood weapons systems better than anyone Jake knew, and he had found something interesting. "Commander," Ryan called from across the control center. "You need to see this targeting system." "It is prehistoric," Jake joined him. Ryan had connected his own portable computer to the targeting interface and was scrolling through lines of alien code. "Look at this," Ryan said. "The weapon is designed to lock onto a planetary mass signature and fly toward it. That is it. No evasive maneuvers, no target tracking, no adaptive guidance. It just flies in a straight line toward the target. A child could dodge this thing if they had a fast enough ship. The Varathians probably never needed anything more sophisticated," Lisa observed. "Their targets were planets." "Planets do not move much," "True," Ryan agreed. "But we can do better. I have been comparing this targeting system to our own missile guidance protocols. With some modifications, I can make this weapon capable of tracking moving targets, performing evasive maneuvers, and even prioritizing multiple targets, like turning a dumb bomb into a smart missile." Jake said, "Exactly, and there is more. The propulsion system is deliberately slow. I think the Varathians wanted their targets to see the weapon coming, to have time to panic. But the engines themselves are capable of much higher speeds. I can reprogram them to increase velocity by at least 30%, maybe more." "Do it," Jake said. "Make this thing as effective as possible. Every advantage we can give ourselves might matter." Ryan got to work. His modifications were mostly software-based, which made them faster to implement than Lisa's hardware changes. He uploaded tracking algorithms from Earth's military computers and adapted them to work with Varathian systems. He optimized the propulsion calculations and removed unnecessary safety restrictions. By the end of the fourth day, the Void Hammer was no longer the weapon the Varathians had launched. It was faster, smarter, and far more deadly. But Lisa had one more modification in mind, and it was the most important one. She gathered the team in the control center. They all looked exhausted. Jake's face was drawn with stress. Ryan had dark circles under his eyes. Even Amy, who had been monitoring from the Shadowrunner, looked worn out over the video link. "I have been thinking about the detonation mechanism," Lisa began. "Right now the weapon is set to explode when the countdown reaches 0. That is fine for the Varathians, but it does not give us much flexibility." "You want to change when it goes off," Jake guessed. "I want to change who controls when it goes off," Lisa corrected. "What if we disconnect the detonation from the countdown timer entirely? Instead, we link it to a remote trigger that we control." The implications hit Jake immediately. "You mean the bomb would not explode unless we tell it to?" "Exactly. The countdown becomes meaningless. The Varathians think they have 9 days until Earth dies. But with a remote trigger, we decide if and when this weapon goes off. We take complete control away from them." "That is brilliant," Amy said from the video screen. "They will not see it coming." "There is one more thing," Lisa continued. "I have been studying the quantum signatures in the weapons systems. Every piece of Varathian technology emits a specific signature, like a fingerprint. I can program the weapon to scan for those signatures when it detonates." "Why would we want that?" Ryan asked. "Because if we detonate this weapon near Varathian ships, the quantum signature pulse will disable their shields before the main explosion. Their own technology becomes their weakness. We can use this to destroy Varathian vessels even if they think they are protected." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. What Lisa was describing turned the Void Hammer into something far more than a planet killer. It became an anti-Varathian weapon specifically, a tool designed to hurt the very civilization that created it. "How long will this take?" he asked. 2 days, maybe 3. "The detonation mechanism is heavily protected and I will need to be very careful. But I can do it, then do it," Jake said. "We have come this far. Let us finish the job properly." Lisa worked with intense focus for the next 3 days. The detonation mechanism was the most sensitive part of the weapon, surrounded by fail-safes and dead-man switches. She had to bypass each one without triggering an immediate explosion. It required steady hands and nerves of steel. Jake stayed with her the entire time, ready to help if needed. He watched as she carefully disconnected the countdown timer and installed a new remote trigger system built from components they had brought from Earth. She then programmed the quantum signature scanner, teaching the weapon to recognize and target Varathian technology. On the 7th day since they had boarded the weapon, Lisa made the final connection. She stepped back and let out a long breath. "It is done," she said. "The weapon is now under our complete control. The Varathians cannot activate it. We can detonate it whenever and wherever we choose." War Master Krell sat in his command chamber aboard the Varathian flagship, watching the countdown timer with satisfaction. 3 days remained. 3 more days until Earth learned the price of arrogance. 3 more days until humanity begged for mercy. The chamber was dark and angular, lit by displays showing star maps and fleet positions. Krell preferred darkness. It helped him think. His forearms rested on the command console as he reviewed reports from his subordinates. Everything was proceeding according to plan. The humans had tried to resist, of course. They always did. Earth's primitive weapons had fired uselessly at the Void Hammer for days before they finally accepted the futility. Their broadcasts showed riots and panic, governments arguing, religious leaders preaching about the end of days. It was exactly what Krell expected. Soon the human leaders would contact the Varathian Empire and offer submission. They would agree to any terms, accept any conditions, just to save their planet, and Krell would accept graciously. He would deactivate the weapon at the last moment, letting humanity know how close they came to extinction. They would be grateful. They would be obedient. It had worked 47 times before. It would work again. A signal chimed. One of his subordinates approached, moving with the practiced efficiency of a career military officer. "War Master," the subordinate said. "We are receiving a transmission from the humans." Krell felt a surge of anticipation. Already. He had expected them to hold out longer to let the fear build, but perhaps they were smarter than he thought. "Play it," Krell ordered. The display changed, showing the face of Commander Jake Morrison. The human looked tired but not defeated. His eyes were steady and calm. Krell felt the first small stirring of unease. "War Master Krell," Jake began. "I am Commander Morrison of Earth's Defense Forces. I wanted to contact you personally to thank you for your generous gift." Krell's eyes narrowed. Gift? What was this human talking about? "You sent us the Void Hammer, intending to demonstrate Varathian superiority and force our submission. But in doing so, you gave us something far more valuable. You gave us access to your technology. You showed us how your weapons work. And you never encrypted any of it because you never imagined we would be bold enough to try what we did." Krell stood up slowly, his body tense. Around him, his subordinates stopped what they were doing. All attention focused on the human transmission. 7 days ago, my team boarded the Void Hammer, Jake continued. We studied it. We understood it. And then we improved it. I am transmitting a technical report now so you can see exactly what we did. Data began flooding Krell's displays. Detailed schematics, energy readings, system modifications. The War Master's trained eye scanned the information, and with each line he read, his unease grew into something approaching alarm. "We reconfigured your antimatter containment system," Jake explained. "Created a cascade feedback loop that multiplies the weapon's yield by a factor of 12. Your bomb could destroy 1 planet. Ours can destroy 12. Impossible," one of Krell's officers muttered. "The containment system cannot be modified like that. The safety margins would fail, but the data on the screen said otherwise." The humans had done exactly what they claimed. They had taken Varathian overcaution and turned it into additional power. "We upgraded your targeting system," Jake continued. "Your weapon flew in a straight line toward static targets. Ours can track moving objects, perform evasive maneuvers, and prioritize multiple targets. We increased the propulsion speed by 32%. Your slow-moving demonstration has become something much faster and much deadlier." Krell felt cold. This was not how subjugation worked. The targets were supposed to panic and submit. They were not supposed to steal the weapon and make it better. "But the most important modification," Jake said, and his face showed something that might have been a smile, "is this. We disconnected your countdown timer. The weapon no longer detonates when you expect it to. It detonates when we tell it to. You launched a bomb at Earth. We captured it, enhanced it, and claimed it as our own. The chamber erupted in shocked voices. Krell silenced them with a sharp gesture. This had to be a bluff. Humans could not possibly have accomplished so much in just 7 days. You do not believe me, Jake said, as if reading Krell's thoughts. I understand. Let me provide proof. The transmission paused. Then another voice joined the channel. This is Admiral Patrick Holland of Earth Defense Command. We are about to conduct a demonstration. I recommend you observe carefully. Krell's displays changed, showing a section of space in an uninhabited system. A barren moon orbited a dead planet. And approaching that moon was the Void Hammer, moving faster than it should be able to move. We are targeting the moon you see on your screens, Holland's voice said. This demonstration uses 1/10 of the weapon's enhanced capacity. Detonation in 5 seconds. Krell watched, unable to look away. The countdown reached 0. The moon did not explode. It did not shatter into pieces. It simply ceased to exist. One moment it was there, a solid sphere of rock and ice. The next moment there was nothing but expanding energy. The detonation was so powerful that it created a visible shockwave that rippled through space itself. And then Krell noticed something else. 4 of his patrol ships had been positioned near the demonstration area. As the shockwave reached them, their shields flickered and died. The ships went dark, drifting helplessly. That was at 1/10 power, Jake's voice returned. And as you can see, the blast's quantum signature disables Varathian shielding. Your own technology turns against you. We also transmitted complete schematics to Earth. Our engineers are already building more of these weapons. Within a year, we will have a fleet of them. Krell sank back into his command chair. This was impossible. This was not how things worked. The Varathian Empire had ruled for 1,000 years, through superior technology and overwhelming force. How could one primitive species reverse everything in a single week? Now, Jake continued, let me deliver Earth's terms. The Varathian Empire will recognize human sovereignty. You will withdraw from all human-claimed systems. You will establish a non-aggression treaty. Any future hostilities will be met with the full force of what we are calling the Liberty Protocol. The Liberty Protocol. They had even given it a name. They had taken the Void Hammer and made it their own weapon, their own symbol. You have 3 days to respond, Jake said. The same amount of time you gave us. When your countdown reaches 0, we expect your answer. Choose wisely, War Master. You taught us about ultimatums. Now we are teaching you about consequences. The transmission ended. Krell sat in silence, staring at the empty screen. Around him, his officers whispered among themselves, their voices filled with shock and fear. War Master, one officer finally said, what are your orders? Krell did not answer immediately. His mind raced through possibilities. They could attack Earth directly with the full fleet. But if the humans really could control the Void Hammer, they could detonate it the moment Varathian ships approached. The entire invasion force would be destroyed. They could try to build defenses against the quantum signature pulse. But that would take months, maybe years, and the humans had already demonstrated they could improve on Varathian technology. Whatever defenses they built, the humans might overcome. They could do nothing and hope the humans were bluffing. But the demonstration had been real. The disabled patrol ships were proof. The humans had the technology and the will to use it. For the first time in his long military career, War Master Krell faced an enemy he could not simply overpower. An enemy that had taken his greatest weapon and turned it against him. An enemy that seemed to thrive on challenges and impossible situations. Contact the High Council, Krell ordered quietly. Tell them we have a situation that requires immediate attention, and tell them that I recommend we accept the human terms. The officer stared at him. War Master, you cannot be serious. We do not negotiate with primitives. Krell turned to face his subordinate, his yellow eyes hard. They are not primitives anymore. They proved that when they did in 7 days what our own engineers never considered in 1,000 years. They proved it when they turned our weapon into something that can destroy us. Pride is a luxury we can no longer afford. The High Council convened within hours. The meeting was tense and heated. Many council members wanted war. They argued that accepting human terms would make the Empire look weak. Other species might rebel if they saw the mighty Varathians backing down. But Krell presented the facts coldly and clearly. The humans had superior weapons now. They had demonstrated both capability and willingness to use them. Any war with Earth would be costly, possibly devastating. And for what, pride? The debate lasted 2 days. In the end, pragmatism won over pride. The Varathian High Council voted to accept Earth's terms. They would recognize human sovereignty. They would sign the non-aggression treaty. They would, for the first time in their long history, treat another species as equals rather than subjects. When the decision was made, Krell personally opened a channel to Earth. This time, Commander Morrison was not alone. He was joined by Admiral Holland and several other human leaders. "The Varathian Empire accepts your terms," Krell said without preamble. "We will recognize human sovereignty and establish a non-aggression treaty. We will withdraw from disputed systems. In return, we expect..." 6 months after the crisis ended, Commander Jake Morrison returned to the same neutral station where he had first met War Master Krell. This time, the circumstances were very different. The station's corridors were filled with delegates from both human and Varathian governments. Security personnel from both sides maintained a respectful distance from each other. And in the main conference room, representatives prepared to sign the Treaty of Horizon Station. Jake stood near a viewing port, watching ships arrive and depart. The station had become a hub of diplomatic activity over the past months. What started as negotiations between Earth and the Varathian Empire had expanded to include other species. Everyone wanted to understand the new balance of power in the galaxy. Dr. Lisa Crawford joined him at the window. She looked different now, more confident. The terrified physicist who had boarded the Void Hammer had become someone who understood her own worth. The scientific community on Earth treated her like a hero. Several universities had offered her prestigious positions. But Lisa had chosen a different path. "Are you ready for this?" she asked. Jake smiled. "To sign a peace treaty with aliens who tried to destroy us? Sure, just another day at work." Lisa laughed softly. "I never thought I would see this day. When Krell first showed us that countdown timer, I was certain we were all going to die. I had nightmares about it for weeks afterward." "We all did," Jake admitted. "But we survived. More than that, we changed everything." They entered the conference room together. The space had been carefully designed to accommodate both human and Varathian needs. The furniture was adjustable. The lighting could be modified. Even the temperature controls had separate zones. It was a physical representation of the new relationship. Different species, different needs, but finding ways to coexist. War Master Krell was already there, standing with several other Varathian officials. Jake noticed that Krell looked older somehow. The alien's posture was still rigid and military, but something in his eyes had changed. He seemed less certain, more thoughtful. When Krell saw Jake, he approached. The two leaders had spoken several times during the negotiations, always professionally, always carefully. But this was different. This was personal. "Commander Morrison," Krell said. "I wanted to speak with you before the signing ceremony." "Of course, War Master." "What is on your mind?" Krell hesitated, which was unusual for him. "I wanted to tell you something that I have not said to anyone else. What your species accomplished with the Void Hammer impressed me. More than that, it taught me something important." Jake waited, curious to hear what the proud Varathian warrior would say. "The Varathian Empire has been dominant for so long that we forgot how we achieved that dominance," Krell continued. "1,000 years ago we were like you, struggling, adapting, finding creative solutions to impossible problems. But as we grew powerful, we became rigid. We stopped innovating because we did not need to innovate. You showed me the cost of that complacency." "I appreciate you saying that," Jake replied. "But I hope you understand. We did not want this conflict. We only wanted to be left alone to grow at our own pace." "I understand that now," Krell said. "At the time, I saw humanity as arrogant children playing with technology they did not earn. I wanted to teach you humility. Instead, you taught me about adaptability, about the danger of underestimating an opponent, about the difference between power and wisdom." The ceremony began shortly after. Representatives from Earth and the Varathian Empire took their positions at a long table. Cameras recorded everything for broadcast across both civilizations. Admiral Patrick Holland represented Earth's military interests. Several government officials represented political interests. Lisa was there as well, representing the scientific community that had made everything possible. The treaty was comprehensive. It established clear boundaries between human and Varathian territories. It created trade protocols and diplomatic procedures. It outlined consequences for violations. Most importantly, it recognized both civilizations as equals, neither superior nor inferior to the other. As Jake watched the signatures being applied, He thought about everything that had led to this moment. The fear, the desperate mission, the impossible modifications, the demonstration that had shocked the galaxy. All of it had brought them here, to this room, signing a document that would reshape galactic politics for generations. But Jake knew the story did not end here. The treaty was just the beginning of something much larger. News of humanity's victory had spread throughout the galaxy faster than anyone expected. Dozens of species subjugated by the Varathian Empire had heard about the humans who turned a Varathian weapon against its creators. Those stories inspired something that the Empire had suppressed for centuries: hope. Within 3 months of the treaty signing, rebellions began on 6 different Varathian-controlled worlds. The subject species saw what humanity had accomplished and wondered if they could do the same. They started questioning Varathian rule. They demanded better treatment, more autonomy, recognition as equals. The Varathian Empire struggled to respond. They could not simply crush the rebellions with overwhelming force anymore. The galaxy was watching. Other species were allying with each other. And humanity, with its newly enhanced weapons, had made it clear they would not tolerate genocide or mass punishment. Krell, interestingly, became one of the strongest voices within the Varathian government, advocating for reform. He argued that the Empire needed to adapt or face eventual collapse. Some traditionalists opposed him, clinging to the old ways, but more and more Varathians began to see the wisdom in his words. For humanity, the 6 months after the crisis brought rapid changes. Earth's economy boomed as other species sought trade agreements. Human colonies expanded at an unprecedented rate. The technology learned from the Void Hammer advanced human science by decades, but not everyone celebrated. Lisa Crawford found herself at the center of an ethical debate that consumed Earth's academic and political circles. She had created a weapon of unimaginable power. The Liberty Protocol could destroy entire fleets, devastate planets, reshape the balance of galactic power. Some people called her a hero, others called her a threat to peace. Lisa struggled with the weight of what she had done. Late at night, alone in her apartment, she sometimes wondered if improving the weapon had been the right choice. Yes, it saved Earth. But now humanity possessed something that could cause incredible destruction. What if future leaders misused it? What if the cure became worse than the disease? To address these concerns, Lisa proposed the formation of an international oversight committee. The committee would control access to the Liberty Protocol. No single nation, no single leader could authorize its use. Instead, a consensus of multiple governments and civilian representatives would be required. It was not a perfect solution, but it was better than leaving such power unchecked. The Oversight Committee became her new project. She stepped away from active research to focus on making sure humanity would not become the next Varathian Empire, drunk on power and contemptuous of others. Admiral Holland retired 6 months after the treaty signing. His farewell address was broadcast across Earth and its colonies. In it, he reflected on the crisis and what it meant for humanity's future. "We survived not because we were the strongest," Holland said to the cameras. "Not because we had the best technology or the most resources. We survived because when faced with impossible odds, we refused to accept defeat. We looked at a weapon meant to destroy us and saw an opportunity. That is what makes humanity special. Not our weapons, not our ships, but our refusal to stop thinking, stop adapting, stop fighting for our survival." His words resonated deeply with people across human space. They became a rallying cry, a reminder that humanity's greatest strength had always been resilience combined with creativity. 5 years after the crisis, Commander Jake Morrison was promoted to Admiral. He took command of Earth's expanding deep space fleet, which had grown dramatically. The Shadow Runner, the ship that had carried him to the Void Hammer, was retired to a museum. But its legacy lived on in a new generation of stealth ships designed with the lessons learned during that desperate mission. Jake's new flagship was called the Liberty's Dawn, named after both the Horizon Dawn and the Liberty Protocol. It was a powerful vessel, equipped with human innovations and adapted Varathian technology. Jake commanded it with pride, knowing that it represented everything humanity had overcome. The galaxy had changed dramatically in those 5 years. The Varathian Empire was still powerful, but it was no longer the unchallenged dominant force. Other species had formed alliances. Trade networks had expanded. New technologies had been developed. The rigid hierarchy that had existed for 1,000 years was being replaced by something more complex and more equitable. Interestingly, some Varathian scientists began collaborating with human researchers. They were curious about how such a young species had accomplished so much so quickly. The initial exchanges were cautious and formal, but gradually genuine friendships formed. Both sides learned from each other, sharing knowledge and techniques. One such collaboration involved Amy Sullivan, who had been promoted to captain and now commanded her own ship. She worked with a Varathian engineer named Vex on improving propulsion systems. Their joint project,